Pattie Boyd finally unmasks George Harrison at 81. Patricia Ann Boyd was born in medieval Taunton, Somerset, England, on March 17, 1944. Born to Colin Ian Langdon Boyd and Diana Frances Boyd, she was raised in post-war Britain's customs and changes. The Royal Air Force employed her father, Colin, and his profession made the Boyd family mobile during Pattie's upbringing. They frequently moved between postings, sometimes abroad. This continual travel provided Pattie a worldly experience from an early age, molding her adaptability and poise, which would later define her modeling career. After Colin Boyd's 1953 RAF discharge, the family returned to England and began a more stable life. Pattie, the oldest Boyd kid, naturally took care of her younger siblings. She grew up with Colin, Jenny, and Paula, creating a tight friendship that would withstand their parents' separation. After her parents divorced and remarried, Pattie gained two stepbrothers, David and Robert Jr., and two stepsisters, Claire and Julia. These blended families exposed her to different personalities and surroundings, improving her social graces and emotional intelligence, attributes that would help her in the sophisticated and fickle fashion and celebrity industry. Pattie Boyd graduated in 1961 with 3 GCO passes, a commendable academic record for her age. Pattie's calling was art and expression, not academia. The following year, she relocated to London, the young culture and creative revolution capital. Pattie arrived just in time to join London's early 1960s cultural explosion of color, energy, and innovation. While working as a shampoo girl at Elizabeth Arden's salon, a Honey magazine employee noticed her delicate beauty, beautiful features, and natural charm and suggested she model, which changed her life forever. By 1962, Pattie Boyd had entered fashion and became a rising celebrity. She started in London, then moved to Paris, a fashionable city. She appeared in Honey, UK Vogue, Vanity Fair, and French Elle. She was one of the most famous early swinging 60s models, appearing in Daily Telegraph and Times fashion editorials. Her elegant, yet youthful style reflected a generation anxious to renew itself, blending purity and aggressiveness. Boyd's prominence increased when she featured on British Vogue's cover, cementing her place among her generation's top models. She collaborated with David Bailey, Terence Donovan, and Brian Duffy, who helped create the swinging London image. Like Jean Shrimpton, epitomized fresh, natural, and effortlessly fashionable beauty. Their style was a radical break from 1950s glamour, embracing a freer, more emancipated woman. This change in style and attitude affected fashion and Western culture. Boyd's modeling career took an unexpected turn in early 1964 when she appeared in Richard Lester's Smith's Crisps TV commercial. Lester cast her as a schoolgirl in the Beatles' debut feature film, A Hard Day's Night, because of her charm and beauty. Pattie met Beatles lead guitarist George Harrison while filming this historic film. World-famous relationship grew from their instant chemistry. The romance plunged her into Beatlemania, where the press and public watched every move she made. The attention gave her a cultural icon status and boosted her modeling career. Boyd received many offers after her fame. She starred in Smith's and L'Oreal ads, posed for Tatler photographer Jean-Luc Sif, and earned additional Vogue and Vanity Fair assignments. Her beauty, grace, and cool elegance inspired fashion photographers and designers. She became a symbol of 60s stardom as the Beatles' most glamorous wife and girlfriend, according to the press. Pattie Boyd represented modern beauty, approachable, spontaneous, and chic, in an era when women worldwide were rediscovering their identity and style. As many fashion commentators noticed, women wanted to look like Pattie Boyd, not Marlene Dietrich, signifying a major shift in societal femininity. Gloria Stavers, 16 Magazine's editor, requested Boyd to write Pattie's letter from London, extending her fame beyond modeling. American kids saw vibrant London via the column, spanning Carnaby Street fashion to Beatles and Rolling Stones outfits. Her vivid writing and intimate perspective made her popular with young readers. However, attention brought undesired problems. George Harrison advised her to cease writing the column for her own safety after receiving angry letters from jealous Beatles fans. Boyd, ever innovative, turned to business. She and her model sister Jenny opened Jennifer Juniper in Chelsea Market, London. The business sold antiques, jewelry, and art, reflecting Pattie's expanding interest in aesthetics beyond fashion. In this endeavor, Pattie bought unusual objects from marketplaces and galleries. Jenny oversaw daily operations. The store was a fashionable hangout for 1960s London artists, singers, and models, embodying fashion and counterculture. Boyd matured professionally in later modeling. Ossie Clark and his wife Celia Birtwell were reinventing late 1960s and early 1970s fashion. She modeled their designs. Boyd appeared on numerous British Vogue covers and in notable picture shoots, including one with her sisters, which highlighted their elegance and grace. She also appeared on an Italian Vogue cover alongside Justin de Villeneuve and Twiggy, marking another milestone in her modeling career. Pattie Boyd's romantic past spans some of rock and roll's most spectacular decades, providing a fascinating account of love, heartbreak, and artistic inspiration. Her marriages to George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and Rod Weston highlighted significant eras in her life. From Beatlemania's elation to later introspection, they tell the narrative of a lady who found calm and identity on her own despite fame's brightest storm. Her first husband was Beatles guitarist George Harrison, a gentle, spiritual man. They married in a small ceremony at Epsom Register Office in Surrey, England, on January 21, 1966, during Beatlemania. In 1964, Pattie, a model, met George on the Beatles' debut film, A Hard Day's Night. She played a schoolgirl admirer in a train scene, and they instantly clicked. George, famously shy yet determined, proposed the day they met. George captured her heart with his charm and sincerity after she originally declined because she was dating another man. Pattie was a swinging 60s icon and George was a world-famous musician. Thus, their marriage signified pop culture and fashion. Early years together were glamorous and creative. Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones met at Kinfins, their Surrey psychedelic dream home. However, celebrity, the Beatles' breakup, and George's spirituality began to undermine their relationship. Pattie remembered that George's meditation and emotional remoteness strained their relationship. Fame, groupies, extended separations, and spiritual searching took their toll. George's infidelity and Pattie's loneliness ended their marriage in the mid-1970s. Pattie always called George her first love, even though they divorced in 1977 after separating in 1974. Pattie entered another passionate love affair soon after her divorce from George, one that inspired rock's most famous tunes. Her second husband was Eric Clapton, famous guitarist and George Harrison pal. Relationship began under difficult and emotional circumstances. Clapton was in love with Pattie when she was married to George, which inspired his 1970 masterpiece Layla and other love songs, especially the mournful ballad Layla, which conveyed his sorrow and devotion. Pattie, flattered but troubled, rejected him for years. She later said Clapton's passion was seductive and intense, bordering on self-destruction. After her divorce from George, Pattie married Eric in 1979 in front of friends and music royalty. Their marriage was gorgeous yet tumultuous. Clapton's career soared. However, his drunkenness and infidelity caused family instability. Pattie often said that living with an addict was difficult, despite times of tenderness and brilliance. The relationship was marked by anguish and disappointment. They created songs like Wonderful Tonight and Bell Bottom Blues, demonstrating Clapton's obsession with her. Substance misuse and emotional stress destroyed their marriage over time. Despite their 1989 divorce, the song she inspired immortalized her as one of rock's greatest muses. Pattie discovered genuine pleasure in a quieter, more grounded relationship after years of emotional turmoil and public spotlight. She met early 1990s property developer Rod Weston. Her new connection was based on mutual understanding and friendship, not fame or artistic passion. After over 30 years together, the couple married in 2015. Pattie often says Rod was her anchor, bringing security and routine to her life. Following the hectic years with two legendary musicians, Pattie Boyd, who inspired some of rock's most exquisite love songs, has now opened up about her relationship with George Harrison, aged 81. The public has only known pieces of their life, romanticized headlines, song lyrics like Anything, and photographs of a golden marriage in the swinging 60s for decades. Boyd now has the insight and distance of age to honestly reflect on the man she loved so much and their extremely difficult marriage. Though she loved George, she confesses that marrying a Beatle was not ideal. Often lonely, confused, and contradictory. As a schoolgirl extra in A Hard Day's Night in 1964, Pattie met George Harrison. She vividly recalled the event. George asked me to supper with his shy eyes. I refused. My lover persisted. Within months, she and George started dating, and Beatlemania engulfed her. The world saw them as youthful, gorgeous, and untouchable, London's mod beauty. Pattie said George felt fame pressure behind closed doors. He was 21 and had the world at his feet. He wanted more, something spiritual that fame couldn't give him. This 1966 marriage was one of the most famous in music. However, Beatles' stardom began to undermine their relationship. George spent hours practicing the sitar and discussing enlightenment as he became more interested in meditation and Indian philosophy. Pattie was enthralled but often felt behind. He was spiritual, she recalls. I attempted to follow him, but I felt like an outsider in his new universe. I wanted to share his peace but felt excluded. Pattie's life became more complicated in the late 1960s when George befriended Eric Clapton. The unrequited love Clapton felt for her inspired Layla, one of the most passionate rock songs ever written. That time's tumult is vividly remembered by Pattie. My love for George left me confused and heartbroken. Sometimes we barely spoke. Fame surrounded us, yet our house was quiet. George was accused of having affairs with Maureen, Ringo Starr's wife. Boyd says it was devastating. I thought my marriage had lost its essence, yet Pattie lasted longer than planned. I didn't want to abandon George, she says. Being himself, he was nice and gentle. The brightness in his eyes when he played guitar or talked about God was unforgettable. Boyd painfully left in 1974 because the emotional distance between them had been too great. She admits leaving was one of her hardest decisions. Part of me loved him, but I needed to discover myself. Pattie and George maintained contact, turning sadness into a peaceful friendship. We forgave each other, she replies happily. Our shared experience left us grateful, not angry. Pattie lamented George's 2001 death, realizing that he had shaped her soul despite everything. My first love was him, she says. I doubt anyone forgets. Pattie Boyd remembers George Harrison as a flawed, striving, and highly spiritual human being, not just a rock legend. Both George and I weren't perfect, she acknowledges. What we had was real. This spawned music, art, and feelings that last decades. I sometimes hear a song on the radio and feel like he's talking to me. Beautiful but sad. Boyd's 81-year-old reflections are compassionate and clear. She doesn't romanticize history. She reveres it. She concludes that love can shape you but isn't permanent. George taught me to seek inner tranquility beyond material things. I've always remembered that lesson. Pattie Boyd finally tells her story, reminding the world that every legend is a human story of love, tragedy, and forgiveness, and the legacy of an era-defining connection.